Good morning, and welcome to the Power of R&D Partnerships Advanced Manufacturing. This event will showcase how New York State Centers of Excellence and Centers of Advanced Technology can help your company develop new products and processes or improve current ones. I am Judy Thal. I'm the Program Manager for the CATS and the COE programs. New York's NYSTAR is Empire State Development's Division of Science, Technology, and Innovation. Our division supports New York State's innovation economy, providing $55 million annually to 70 centers throughout the state, each center focusing on a specific technology. The NYSTAR-funded centers you will hear from today leverage New York State's unparalleled investment in world-class technology assets and expertise with programs that can assist your company from startup through maturity. Each presenter will have approximately 10 minutes to discuss how their center works with industry and helps New York State companies accelerate growth. We ask that you hold all questions until after all the presenters have presented, and they will be at their tables. After the session, you will have opportunities to ask those questions. You can visit a table simply by clicking on the table name. The rest of the tables will be open for networking. We hope that you stay and enjoy meeting individuals from New York State's innovation community. Again, please hold your questions until the networking portion. With that, I would like to ask our first presenter up to the stage. Benson Chan is the Associate Director of the Integrated Electronics Engineering Center, or IEEC, at Binghamton University. Good morning, Benson.
Good morning, Judy. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
Okay, let's get started. Can you tell me what are some key challenges in electronic packaging that the IEEC is particularly active in?
So one of the things that with most industries, there's always going to be dichotomies, and in electronics is no different. I mean, we've got companies that are looking at really, really small devices, packing more functions into a given space. A simple example is if you take a look at your smartphones that everyone carries, you look at how that size of the phone really hasn't changed in 4 or 5 years. But what you also notice that every year that comes out, you get more and more features. You get better cameras, you get better battery life, and then with the last 2 years, you get 5G. Well, when you add 5G, if you haven't looked inside, there's at least 5 more antennas that they had to pack in there, along with a lot of supporting devices that goes into it. So you think about how do you pack more stuff into a given space, and also battery life. So what that does is it makes the interconnections, the solder joints between the package and the motherboard, they get a lot smaller. And what happens is it affects the reliability of that part. So, if you drop your phone, you don't want it to break, right? So a lot of times what happens is those solder joints will crack. And that's what actually causes the problem. So we do a lot of research on understanding why things fail. If you know why things fail, you can always fix it. If you don't know why things fail, you just keep going, and you're going to get returns. The other side of that coin is for high performance computing servers, they're actually going the opposite way. They're getting bigger and bigger packages. So if you look at packages, like for instance, like your desktop computer, those packages are about 32 millimeters for a Intel processor or AMD processor. The high performance computing are actually going towards 7,500 millimeters square. So you're looking at a 4 inches square package with many dies, lots of interconnects, but again, a lot harder to build. So what happens there is now you got to understand the warpage that a part will go through when you go to reflow. So room temperature to 260 degrees C, that part goes crazy inside that reflow oven. So you have to know that warpage will not affect the solder joints when it goes through the reflow, so that at the end you have a part that is well connected, that you understand the reliability afterwards. And we actually do a lot of testing to help companies understand what's going to happen to that part.
Thank you. Can you give us a recent example of how the IEEC researchers helped a company meet real-time project needs?
So we had a LED company reach out to us. Basically, they don't make the standard LED lighting that you see, but it's more of a specialized market. It's more towards communications. And what they did was they came to us with some failures, and first thing they wanted to do is, they asked us, well, why did it break? Where did it break? And so we did a lot of work on non-destructive. We do a lot of things with acoustic microscopy. So basically, what it is, you put the part into a water bath, and you use a ultrasonic transducer to send audio signals down. And depending on the reflection that you'll get an indication whether you have a separation or you have nothing. So we did that. We did find some strange readings, and then what we did was we followed up with some 3D X-ray, and then we finally went to cross section. So once we did the cross section, we actually verified that there was indeed a crack underneath the LED device. We actually did a lot more work on understanding the extent of the crack, but then we also looked at understanding why that material would crack. And we found out that the material that they use, it was a high molecule material. So basically it was very brittle. It doesn't really give as much. And so we contacted a company called Nanix. It's a company that actually makes a lot of the materials it's used in industry for protecting components. And so we went to them, asked for a low modulus device that would be used for this application. And so we worked with Nanix as well as the LED company, and we basically settled on the material, and we did the materials characterization, understand how it's going to behave, and we actually got the company to make these parts, right? And we helped them with doing stress testing, and we found that ultimately we got away from that cracking issue. So I think we helped them understand what the cause was, and we actually helped them find a solution.
Great, great. Can you give us an example of a company that has used your smart electronics manufacturing lab? How is the lab advancing Industry 4.0 and the use of artificial intelligence in electronics manufacturing?
So the Smart Electronics Manufacturing Lab is a newer lab underneath the IEEC. What we did was back in 2017, we had a grant from Koyoung Industries. It's a company out of South Korea. And what they do is they are market leader in automated optical inspection for the SMT industry. And so their tools are used, probably about 80% of the market now. And what they came to us was they wanted to know if there's a way that they can use that data that they get, right? So by doing optical inspection, they can see everything. They look at every single device. They look at, for instance, if you're looking at solder paste printing, they'll look at X, Y, and Z location. They also look at theta. They look at how uniform the solder is printed, and they know a lot. So they want us to know is there a way to connect that tool to the solder paste printer, right? The tool that actually does the processing. And so we actually came up with we did a lot of work, and we actually got a way of creating an interconnect between their tools and solder paste printers, not just one companies, but I think 3 companies. And what that does do, it's now saying, if I see this condition, I can send the parameters to the printer and say, make these changes, and then send me the next part. So we're actually doing that for the entire process, which is not just solder paste printing, but also pick and place, but also solder reflow. So that's really what we're doing. We're using a machine learning AI system to actually understand, if I see a condition, what changes should I put to the preceding tool to make it, allow that process parameter to be better centered. And we actually have rolled out that initial piece of software for solder paste. And Sanmina and Jabil are 2 of the biggest companies in at least the US that are doing a lot of these assemblies for other companies. And they're actually adopting that piece of software. So we're actually following on with the next iteration now is work on the interconnection between the inspection tool and the pick and place, as well as the interconnection to the solder reflow. So now what we're doing is we're trying to build a closed loop system where at the end of the line, if I get a part that comes out and says my solder filler is not where it should be, the component's not where it should be, do I make a change to the pick and place tool, or do I make a change to the solder paste tool? Right? Or even if it's needed, do I make a change to the reflow profile, right? To try to adjust everything that we need to do to better center the part so that ultimately at the end you have a part that's going to be built to spec, you have a much higher yield, you have a lower cost, and also by building parts to print, you should get a better part that's going to make it, that has better reliability as well.
Terrific, thank you. And just to close, you work with all sizes of companies, is that correct?
Yeah, we work with large companies. I mean, our full members, our founding members actually, were IBM, GE, and Lockheed. That was about 30 years ago, and they've been around. They stayed with us. We do a lot of research for them. We do a lot of experiments. I think right now a lot of the drive is actually looking at low temperature solders. So we're actually engaged with IBM and Intel on that front. But also we also work a lot with Indian solders up in Utica, because they provide a lot of the paste for us. So yeah, we do a lot of work with these companies, but also smaller companies that, if you're a startup company, we'll actually offer the SEML as a way of producing prototype assembly process for you guys. So that's the way that we can engage smaller companies. And then a lot of companies that come to us actually look at using us for failure analysis, right? Why are my parts breaking, right? So, we'll do the root cause analysis, understand what's happening. The only problem is with some of these fails where you have a big board and you have a big hole in the middle, right? Because you had a big fire. There's nothing left of the site that burns. So we need to figure out how to look at the forensics. How do we look at the circuit board, understanding that construction that will lead to the possible cause of that fail. So anybody's welcome.
Terrific. Thank you, Benson. And again, Benson will be at his table will be the Integrated Electronics Engineering Center table, the IEEC. Thank you, Benson.
Yep, thank you.
Next, we'd like to call up Dennis Cormier. Dennis is the Director of the Additive Manufacturing and Multifunctional Printing, AMPrint, as we call it, at RIT. He's brought a company with him, Pratam Poddar, who is the founder and CEO of Prism. Welcome, Dennis.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, and welcome, Pratam. So my first question is, the AMPrint Center is about multifunctional printing, not just printing mechanical parts that has become somewhat common. Tell us about a company that is developing novel applications that take advantage of multifunctional 3D printing capabilities.
Okay, so Prism here is with a startup company that we spun out. This question doesn't quite hit on his company, but he'll be at the breakout table and can talk about carbon fiber composite 3D printing that they're doing. And most of what we do is traditional 3D printing. So we'll work with companies, for instance, to help make prototypes of new products that they might bring to market. But for other broader flavors of 3D printing, I'll actually give two real quick examples, one with a large company and one with a small family-owned company. So on the large side, Xerox, every document printing company in the world is trying to get into 3D printing because we just don't print documents like we used to. So we've been working for several years with Xerox on development of a brand new 3D printing process that makes metal parts by jetting droplets of molten metal. So really interesting process. And their primary interest is in making 3D metal parts with that. But a lot of the research projects that we do this gets to the multifunctional part that you were asking about, Judy. A lot of the projects that we do involve printed electronics with aerospace companies, for instance. And so one of the things that we realized early on was that Xerox's process, in addition to making 3D metal parts, we could actually print conductive circuit board patterns. And so we started working with that. We currently are working with 3 different companies on 3D printed electronics with that process. 2 of them are aerospace applications, and one involves a solar cell application. Another quick example, that's on the big side. On the small side, a family-owned company that developed a very unique material for a medical device application. And this is something, the medical device has to be customized for each person. So you have a manufacturing lot size of 1, and it has multiple materials. So 3D printing was the only way that their material would work, but they knew nothing about 3D printing. So we've been collaborating with them for the past 2 years. We had a chemist that modified their material to make it 3D printable. We developed a prototype 3D printer and demonstrated a device with using their material. And then we connected them with a local company that is designing and building the commercial 3D printer that's going to go to market with the modified version of their material that we developed. And so that's a really nice project where you've got, a small family-owned business, you've got some large companies, and it's the integration of quite a few different companies and the Imprint Center.
Wonderful. Thank you. Dennis, where would a small manufacturer start in trying to think outside the box to use 3D printing to improve production?
Yeah, so there are a couple potential answers to that question. One is there's a New York State aerospace company that I remember having a conversation with them where I asked them where the biggest return on investment was. And that's to your question of improving production. And they said assembly unitization. So if you have a multi-part, an assembly that's 6 or 7 or 8 parts, simply to make each individual part easier to manufacture, and they merge all of those parts into one single piece component that can be 3D printed, but would be impossible to make any other way. I call those Frankenstein parts because you can't make them any other way. They said that's their biggest return on investment because their supply chain is dramatically simplified. That they'll go from 7 or 8 suppliers with different parts to a single supplier with that one part, and that's where their biggest return on investment was. So I thought that was interesting. There are companies that are doing on-demand castings. So some companies that you have aluminum castings, let's say, and these might be for spare and replacement parts. And they'll have shelves in their factories with 3 years worth of castings because of minimum order quantities from the casting houses. So that's a lot of dollars that's tied up on shelves in inventory. So some of these companies are looking at using metal additive manufacturing to do on-demand castings, if you will. They're no longer cast, they're 3D printed, but you don't have to order it until you actually need it. And that eliminates all the cost of inventory sitting on the shelves, that normally would be associated with minimum order quantities. And, a couple other things, just short run tooling. If you need to injection mold a very small number of parts, you can 3D print molds overnight that are, they're fine for shooting a couple hundred plastic parts. And similar things for thermoforming and whatnot. So those are some ideas that come out for that question.
Great. Pratam, can you tell us about your company and how Imprint is able to help you or has been helping you?
Yeah, absolutely. I have been associated with the Imprint Center for 7 years. because Dennis was my advisor for my PhD. So the company started out of the PhD research that we were doing on 3D printing of carbon fiber composite materials. We were focusing on a very specific genre of 3D printing called lattice structures. So these are structures. I have an example here on my hand, or maybe you can see. I'll put it in front of my face. Okay. Yeah. So these are very unique structures, which means they are very lightweight and very strong at the same time. And with traditional manufacturing techniques, you cannot make them. They are very hollow and they are very intricate geometries. The only way to manufacture them with the precision right now is manually. Other than 3D printing, if you want to do assemble them, you have to do it manually. So we looked at what companies want to use these materials, and we got a lot of enthusiasm from the unmanned aerial vehicle industry or unmanned aerial systems industry. They are looking to make this into parts, wing parts that have this lattice structure, so their wings are lighter and can be made multifunctional, right? Because with 3D printing you can consolidate many components into one part, and you can make a single wing that has no extra components for the pitch, yaw, and all of that. So that is what the company is focusing on, and why Imprint Center and RIT has been so monumental in our efforts. First of all, we need talent to develop this technology. This is deep technology. We need people who are skilled in a lot of deep engineering fields like 3D printing, computers, artificial intelligence, robotics. So RIT helped us build the team. There is so much talent on the team, because while building a startup, we need to be selective about who we let onto our team, but we need a big pool of students, talent, to be selective. And RIT gave us access to that big pool of talent. So we have 4 people working in the company who are founders full time, and all of them are RIT graduates. We have 2 interns who are working with the company. They are also RIT graduates. So they have been a big help in taking the technology forward, because we come up with solutions, but they make our solutions better. They are young, they have agile minds, so they are able to advance our solutions much faster than we could have done alone. So back to you, Judith.
Thank you, Pratam. So Dennis, just building on that, and I want to ask you the same question that I asked Benson. You deal with both large and small companies, and companies that come from RIT, but also companies that come in from the outside. And you assist those also, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Terrific.
And yep.
And lastly, can you just tell us about some applications that you see for printed electronics moving forward?
Yeah, so certainly the military and aerospace are big drivers for printed electronics. It can even be repairing damaged circuit boards, but they're big into conformal electronics. Benson was mentioning cell phone antennas and cell phones, and so a lot of cases you have circuits that are not planar. So that's a big application, and as an extension of that, 3D antennas, where you can take an antenna, a planar antenna that would be physically very large, and if you do a 3D antenna, you can get the same performance in a much smaller space. Power electronics, electronics where you have to carry very high currents. We have some processes that are good with that. And then even things like printed batteries. There are some applications where a standard battery doesn't have the right shape for your application, but you can print a battery that is, let's say, an L shape, a battery that fits in the space that you have. And then, capacitive touch sensors, the things that we use on our cell phones, we touch the screen of a cell phone. You can find those in cars, right? The dome light on a car, instead of having a big mechanical rocker switch, you just touch an on-off switch, and it's very thin. and gives you more headroom in the car. So those are some quick examples of print electronics.
Terrific. Thank you. So everybody, you can find Dennis and Pratam at the Additive Manufacturing and Multifunctional Printing, or AMPrint, at RIT table to ask questions during the networking portion. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Pratam.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Next, we're going to call up Dr. Michael Thurston. Mike is the director of the Center of Excellence in Advanced and Sustainable Manufacturing at RIT.
Thanks, Judith.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good today. Thanks.
Good. Let's just start questions. RIT's Industry 4.0 transition program is targeted toward small and medium-sized manufacturers. Can you tell us about how you've worked with the company to translate these sometimes intimidating technologies into tangible bottom line improvements?
Sure. First, I'll say that Industry 4.0 is a general term that encompasses smart and digital manufacturing, ultimately more effective use of data in the manufacturing process, included within kind of the technology mix is robotics, business intelligence, and machine learning, 3D printing, general software integration, among other types of technologies. One of the small to medium-sized companies we worked with is Rbw Designs. They're originally located in the Brooklyn area, a small designer and manufacturer of custom lighting systems. They had a business problem that most small manufacturers would like to have. They had too much business and couldn't meet the demand. They manufacture somewhat custom products, so they tend to be low volume and high mix, which kind of accentuated the challenges they had with growing demand. So they were considering moving to a larger facility and also looking at how to enhance their technology use to improve reduce lead times and improve operational efficiency. So one of the things we do is a digital readiness assessment that we developed, and that looks at 16 different organizational dimensions, including shop floor, integration, and also things like training and leadership, for example. So that's kind of a standard assessment that we do. They actually, for a small company, I would say, compared to most companies their size, we're actually further ahead than many companies are in terms of their use and integration of technology. So they scored fairly advanced on the assessment. However, there are always things that you can do to improve your operation. So in looking at their operation, there are a couple opportunities that jumped out. Better integration of the manufacturing execution system they used with their ERP system to automate KPI collection in order to generate the kinds of data in real time to improve their operations and reduce, that's a key thing for lead time. There was potential for using vision-based verification of the build components to reduce errors in their manual build process. And also automating end-of-line quality checks to reduce labor on the quality side. And then another key element was improving the connectivity between their engineering systems, in particular between their design system, the ERP system, and MES, in order to streamline both their bill of materials management and then also orders, supply orders, and they use electronic work instructions, so to reduce the effort with kind of their high mix operation to develop their work instructions through that integration. So the output of the assessment really was a strategic roadmap for them on how to integrate technology into their existing planning process. They plan on multiple different time levels. So, we developed kind of a 3-year strategic roadmap with quarterly components for technology integration. Ultimately, they did decide to move to a larger upstate manufacturing facility. As a part of that move, we helped them with kind of redesigning the layout of their processes within the facility, movement of materials, and then also start of integration of some of these technologies into their new process in order to basically, meet their growing demand with some room for future growth and also reduce their production lead times.
Thanks, Mike. RIT has become known for helping companies become more resilient to supply chain challenges, like those caused by the pandemic. Can you tell us about this work?
Sure. During the pandemic, we actually had a few crisis programs we worked on where companies needed short-term supply solutions. The process usually includes some level of re-engineering of affected products. In some cases, they may be purchased components that you don't have all the engineering specifications for. And then also supporting identification of alternative domestic sources of supply. One case we worked on involved changing over from Chinese injection molded parts to a US supply that could be spun up fairly quickly, initially using 3D printed parts, and then ultimately low volume injection molding tooling within the US. I think since kind of the crisis, they have gone back to supply from China to some extent, but that was kind of solving the problem in the short term. So that capabilities to help with that kind of come out of our work with the remanufacturing industry. We have a pretty strong reverse engineering capability, including dimensional reverse engineering and also the material science side. Kind of the other area that we do quite a bit of work in general is design for manufacturing. Most of that work we do today is with startups and small companies that don't have strong manufacturing expertise, but that capability kind of helps as you get into the sourcing side of things and modifying designs to fit different or new manufacturers, suppliers.
Well, you mentioned RIT's expertise in remanufacturing, material reuse, and life cycle engineering. How do you help improving companies with their sustainability?
So there's a couple of parts of that question. Remanufacturing in general is a sustainable way, a more sustainable way to manufacture because it keeps products in service longer. So you have less waste, and even compared to recycling, because you retain the manufacturing value add in the product, it's more energy efficient and also much more cost efficient, which is primarily why remanufacturing is being done. Generally, there's been a decline in remanufacturing companies in New York over the last 20 years. We used to have a pretty strong automotive remanufacturing industry and some consumer products industry, but a lot of that has either been outcompeted by China or in some cases moved to Mexico. However, there's still a fair amount of quality remanufacturing companies in New York. We work with companies that produce remanufactured office furniture, small aircraft engines, military engines and transmissions, also material handling equipment. We also, in the remanufacturing area, through the Remade National Manufacturing Institute, we work with national companies such as Caterpillar, John Deere, BorgWarner, Trane, among others. So, we have kind of that broader experience and impact through remanufacturing. So, a lot of companies may not be interested in remanufacturing their products. However, the kind of technologies that we apply in remanufacturing, non-destructive inspection, condition assessment, additive repair, are also applicable to service and repair applications, and also improving how you support fielded products. Similarly, the life cycle engineering principles that we apply are also applicable to designing products for improved service and support. So those are some ways to kind of use the capabilities we have more broadly. And again, through keeping products in service longer, monitoring products or manufacturing equipment to improve the performance, including efficiency and quality, you can reduce, waste and manufacturing impacts. We provide life cycle assessment services also. Life cycle assessment is a core quantitative methodology for sustainability to assess the overall sustainability of systems and products, kind of at the systems level. We also have another unit that's not part of the Center of Excellence, but supported by New York State, the New York State Pollution Prevention Institute, that can help companies with sustainability scorecards or sustainability certifications that may be required by their supplier, by their customers. And also they support direct assistance projects to reduce emissions such as chemical or water related emissions. So that kind of covers a couple of aspects of that question.
Great. Well, thank you, Mike, for your time this morning. And Mike can be found at the Center of Excellence, Advanced and Sustainable Manufacturing at RIT table. And again, thanks, Mike.
Yep. Thanks for your continued support, Judy.
Next, we're going to call up, excuse me for just 1 second. Sorry, I'm in a room where the lights turn off automatically. Next, we're calling up Tavis Azel, Director of Business Development for the Center of Advanced Technologies in Sensors and Exploration of Natural Systems and Environments at the ASRC, or that is the ASRC, at CUNY in New York City. Good morning, Tavis.
Hi, good morning, Judy. And I just wanted to add, I think my one of the companies that we support, James Schultz, I saw he joined. So if somebody can bring him up to the stage as well, I'll help introduce him. But yeah, I can get started. So yeah, thanks for having me here today. It's great to be with you and everybody else from New York State at the other CATs and COEs that are joining. And I'm coming to you from New York City, and I'm happy to be a part of the team at the Advanced Science Research Center, otherwise known as the ASRC at CUNY, which works out of City College's campus up in West Harlem. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for being a part of this. And is James coming up to the stage?
James will have to turn on his mic and his camera to come to the stage.
Okay, well, while we're why don't I start with sensor-based technologies have such a wide range of potential applications. So I'd like to highlight an industry collaboration in two of your focus areas. First, can you tell us about a company project in the area of biomedical devices or diagnostics? And Perhaps
Yeah,
that is,
thanks. Yeah, so James was actually going to be my example for the bio-inspired devices, but maybe the other area while he's getting his technology sorted out. But I can shift over to the environmental side of things. So we kind of have the luxury, as you said, sensing is such a wide range of applications, from kind of the nano side of things, which James will talk about, but then also from kind of the macro or environmental sciences side of things. So we're lucky to have at our new center a developing next generation sensors lab, which really focuses on that macro side. So incorporating a lot of sensing technology that's already available on the market. You can purchase low cost, low power sensors. What we do is we really come in to kind of help build the packaging and devices that then allow you to go deploy those out in the environment. So one specific kind of project that we're working on with New York City and a few different companies is a flood sensing project. So actually building the housing, the electronics, together with the sensors in our facility, and then taking those out into the field, using students from City University of New York in order to go out and actually not only build the housing and devices, but then collect the data from those and then bring that back to the lab to process. So one of the biggest challenges there is not only the building the devices themselves, but actually the maintenance and connecting them to the networks that they exist on. That's challenging. They're out in the environment being exposed to all the different things you can imagine in the weather, but it's an incredibly impactful project. The city's investing a lot of money in that. There's a lot of startup interest in kind of tapping into these open source networks. Maybe another company I can highlight just in that particular area as well is a company called Atolatech. So they're a female-founded company. It was a PhD student that came out of City College. She works together with her PI and is funded through our CAP program to develop continue to develop maybe I would say prototype version 3 of a LiDAR-based camera system, which was originally developed to detect and study invasive species. So imagine in your farm, you're trying to understand how the insect population is destroying your crops or plants. You want to know kind of the time scale that's happening on, so you can then, accurately deploy methods of mitigating those processes. So what they've been doing is developing a system which can be deployed in the field, which detects using a LiDAR-based detection system in order to kind of be there real time and give large farming institutes the ability to kind of map that, understand what's happening. What they're doing with our CAD, I think, is really interesting. They're not only working with the PI to develop the algorithms that are going to study specific kinds of insects, but we're also connecting them with students who will go out in the field again, who have come through like our community sensor lab. They've been already kind of validated as having the hands-on skills in order to operate devices out in the field. So the founder of the company is really excited to kind of work with students at CUNY that can go out in the field. She will train those students to do the work, and then they eventually have a pathway to get jobs within the company as it grows. And I see James has now joined us here, so
Yes.
maybe Judy, if you don't mind, I can kick the question back to him about really the interface between nanoscience and bio devices, which is where James has really been developing novel technology. Hey, James.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
yes.
Yes. So I have a startup company that makes a nanotechnology platform. We originally started focusing on applications for low-cost, high-resolution infrared imaging, and to a little bit of biotech now in our application space. And a lot of that came about actually during COVID lockdown and discussions with Tavis and the Sensor Cat, and looking into what was needed at the time. And we realized that our nanotechnology platform could also be applied as a label-free biosensor. So we could do, we could potentially code. And so we take the application pivot investigating that with some funding from the Sensor Cat into the lab, validate some of these ideas and concepts and moving into the space. We last 6 months in the Westchester Biotech Accelerator, further validating the business side. Can you hear me?
Yeah, James,
Yes.
I think your audio is kind of cutting out. If you just turn off your,
So I lost
your
Tavis.
camera, maybe that'll help.
Yeah, so we looked into applying our technology. I guess one of the, in working with the CAT, we realized that our initial technology was actually a platform for numerous applications. And so we continue to work on the infrared imaging application, but also have made a lot of progress on the biotech side. And it's interesting because there's a lot of I'll say gain to be had in applying nanotechnology to life science applications. There's a lot of value propositions, such as the ability to scale using a wafer scaling process to make very low cost tests that, as we all know from the last few years, are essential to quality of care.
Of high sensitivity sensor design that the CAT is working to address.
Yeah, thanks, Judy. I think as James kind of touched on there, there's a lot of opportunity in this kind of space between the interface of like nanotechnology
we may have
or
lost Tavis.
sensor. Judy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so yeah, there's, I think that as James mentioned, there's a lot of opportunity and value to be had in this kind of interconnection between nanotechnology and biotechnology. And we see a lot of that kind of growing in the New York City area where we're located in West Harlem. Columbia University, together with New York State, is investing a lot in developing incubation sites, further opportunities for companies to kind of spin out of the university, whether that's at CUNY or in the surrounding region. I think the main challenges there really become just an interdisciplinary problem, and I think whether that's the cost and the challenges.
I actually can't hear Tavis.
That's okay, James. I think everybody else can.
Yes.
But in any case,
Yes.
I'll continue and just say that so I think the challenges are really multidisciplinary. So you have to do a lot of device building within a nanofabrication facility like where James is working at the ASRC, but then you also have to interact and collaborate with biotechnology experts that can really help you understand how things are working on a molecular level. So once you build a platform device, how is it going to interact with the bio world? And I think that's really where our CAT comes in to try to help connect the pieces there. So I think we're really blessed to be in a center that has it is truly an interdisciplinary center. So we have nanoscience expertise, we have photonics, structural biology, neuroscience, and at the highest or top floor, the environmental sciences. So it's really kind of trying to connect the dots between all those things, and then the CAT helps kind of lower the cost for companies that want to interact together with us, and whether that's working together with experts or working together with the core facilities like James does.
Great. Yeah, that's a good point about the interdisciplinary and interdisciplinary. I think though that also our centers are also very good at if they cannot assist a company with all of their needs. We have so many assets in our portfolio that they can always contact another center and see if that center can assist them too. And we often have companies that work with several centers at a time. So,
Yeah, I think that's I would add to that, Judy, just to kind of amplify what you just said. I mean, I see, our colleagues from some of the other CATs and COEs on here, and I know that's something that we all kind of try to champion together is figuring out how we can kind of connect the dots for companies. So, James, for instance, has expressed use of going up to Cornell and using their nanofab or facilities. We can use our CAT funding in order to, for a project that he's investing in to help him do that. So I think that's, I'll just, reiterate that point.
great. Well, thank you very much, Tavis and James, for being a part of this. And both Tavis and can be found at the table. If you have any questions, please feel free to stop by and during the next and talk to them. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy.
Well, I'd like to thank all of today's presenters and welcome everyone back to the networking floor. You'll automatically be placed at a network to move around as you wish. Remember to engage in a conversation. You will need to turn your microphone and camera on. Thank you for attending, and we hope to see you all at the New York State Innovation Summit in Buffalo, New York, October 25th through October 26th. Thank you.